Welcome to the Diadem. We are a small group, and I've written a book. This book was written to capture my journey from a lifetime of forced astral attack to poltergeist activity, navigating through the wolves of the corrupt and sold-out church and the BS New Age, and finally, through a very small Bible study group and what we've learned. Believe me, I'm pissed right off. In the future, we're going to add controversial and truth-seeking Bible study series based on the lessons learned in this book. We may not have all the answers, but we've got a lot of them. And we hope you join us with an open mind. Chapter 11. The modern Israel confusion, addressing political implications and historical context, all too briefly. The modern state of Israel was established in 1948, but its origins can be traced right back to the Balfour Declaration of 1917. This declaration was a letter from the British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to Lord Rothschild, expressing support for the establishment of a, quote, national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. The Balfour Declaration was issued during World War I and was influenced by geopolitical strategies, including gaining support from Jewish populations worldwide. The Declaration and subsequent establishment of the modern state of Israel have been sources of ongoing conflict in the Middle East, affecting international relations, regional politics, and the lives of millions. The ancient conflicts between various biblical tribes and nations, such as Judah and Ephraim, and the struggles of the Israelites, find echoes in the modern political dynamics of the Middle East, albeit stolen echoes. These ancient conflicts often centered around territorial disputes, leadership claims, and religious differences. The modern state of Israel and its relations with neighboring Arab states can be seen as a continuation of these historical conflicts with deep-rooted tensions over land, sovereignty, and identity. However, these are manufactured. As we've seen all throughout this book, the Israelites have nothing to do with the quote-unquote Babylonian Nimrod elites from ancient Judah, nor anything to do with the lost tribes of Israel. Throughout history, secret societies and elite bloodlines are believed to have wielded significant influence over global events and political decisions. Groups like Freemasons, quote-unquote Illuminati, and certain powerful families like the Rothschilds are often cited in theories about hidden agendas and manipulations, not last of which is the covering of historical documents and evidence, altered history, propaganda, and passing of the occult or hidden teachings down, such as natural law. These groups are thought to have played a role in the establishment of Israel and the broader Middle East political landscape, manipulating events behind the scenes to achieve their goals, and using biblical narratives to push their goals by redefining terms and editing the documents themselves. The role of the church in perpetuating these deceptions is huge. The institutional church has played a role in shaping and perpetuating certain narratives and doctrines that align with very specific political or theological agendas. The Council of Nicaea, Jerome's Vulgate translation, the endorsement of the Logos theory, to begin, and the church's support for the state of Israel, interpretations of biblical prophecies, alignment with certain political ideologies, redefinition of words can all contribute to ongoing deceptions and misunderstandings among believers. And don't forget, throwing out those handy-dandy Greek articles to make it say something completely different. Now, the current hot debate around Schofield's influence on American evangelicism has been reignited recently. And sadly, this debate has taken center stage without so much as a glance, never mind a deeper look, into corruption long before Darby showed up, with figures like Tucker Carlson addressing it. So what we have is a turn on the evangelicals because everyone wants to not support Rothschild Israel. But Christians are unwilling to look at their own denomination of Protestantism, which holds to every single doctrine that Catholicism holds to, which kicked the ball all off by adopting the Jewish, pagan Hellenistic logos to begin with. So they're all guilty, and they'll just stand around and point fingers at each other on and on and on. And the current one to beat up on is Scofield. Tucker Carlson critiques the impact of Scofield's dispensationalism, which emphasizes a literal interpretation of the Bible when they want to, and a strong distinction between Israel and the church. Now, I don't agree that they're interpreting the Bible literally. They're interpreting the Bible the way the Rothschild seminaries are telling them to. Please do look into the amount of funding and where the funding comes from your quote-unquote Moody Bible seminaries and your college programs across the United States, who has then spread their BS to the four corners of the earth. Look where that funding comes from. Okay? So they're interpreting this, they're giving their interpretations of these biblical passages and claiming that it's literal. But really, it's literally out of the curriculum of the Balfour Declaration Rothschild family. Now, in Theosophy and Aleister Crowley. Now, Cyrus Scofield, known for his Scofield Reference Bible, popularized dispensationalism in the early 20th century. How convenient. But his theological roots trace back to John Nelson Darby, who was a 19th century theologian, considered the father of pre-millennial dispensational garbage. Darby's teachings have linked to Theosophy, a spiritual movement that emerged in the late 19th century. This is the part that people don't want to address, the Theosophy piece of it, because that Theosophy is the bridge that links all of these politicians, all of these secret societies, all of these BS seminary preachers that they're churning out in this giant conglomeration of crap that they're throwing at the people. Everything from Tucker Carlson to Russell Brand to theological seminary brilliant geniuses to your evangelicals, to your seminary training, all of it links back to Theosophy. And nobody's catching that. Your OTO, your Golden Dawn, your astral projection, your New Age that's being pushed out to kids these days. It all goes back to Theosophy. It was a spiritual movement that emerged in the late 19th century, and critics argue that Darby and Scofield incorporated theosophical ideas into their theological framework, which some believe deviates from traditional Christian teachings. You think? This connection to Theosophy has been a point of contention. Now, I assert that the problem with Christianity goes back much further and much deeper than Theosophy, but at least it's a decent place to start. The Scofield Reference Bible, first published in 1909, has had a significant impact on Christian Zionism and dispensationalist theology, which I believe the quote-unquote controllers or quote-unquote elites are funding and utilizing against the people, not because it's biblically sound, but because they're using this false narrative from the Bible as a playbook to institute their plans of power and control. Now, his notes and commentary promote a specific interpretation of biblical prophecy, which happens to be garbage, emphasizing the centrality of the Rothschilds' Israel in God's plan for the quote-unquote end times. Critics argue that Schofield's work has distorted Christian theology, promoting a pro-political Israel agenda that influences American foreign policy and evangelical support for Israel. Now remember, Schofield's work is distorting Christian theology that's already been distorted before. So we're like 6 generations from nobody knows what the hell's going on in the Bible to begin with. It's important as we continue and go through series that will be dropping over the next several months and years to keep some reminders in our foresight. There's been so much repetitions to Christians, society, non-Christians, everybody, about what Christianity is and what the Bible teaches that's just blatantly false. And it's been repeated so many times that it doesn't hurt to repeat some cornerstones over and over and over and over and over to reverse this thinking in our brains. So the first part that I really want to highlight is the Davidic promise being left open. I don't think people are understanding how big this is. The promise of a Messiah from the line of David remains unfulfilled due to the Christian insistence on the virgin birth, which we've learned is based on false translation. And this virgin birth conveniently leaves the Davidic prophecy wide open. If David is not the patriarchal lineage to Jesus, or Jesus doesn't have the patriarchal lineage to David, that prophecy is not fulfilled, and Jesus is not the Messiah. So the Rothschilds can walk right in and stake a claim to Israel from a Davidic right to rule, which is extremely significant. The flag of Israel features Solomon's seal, not at all a symbol related to David. The symbol underscores the disconnect between the Rothschild claim and the true Davidic lineage. So by not acknowledging Jesus's Davidic lineage, Christians have unintentionally left the Davidic promise wide open, symbolically and physically transferring Jesus's right to rule to others, to the enemy, such as the Rothschilds, every single Christmas when they're emphasizing, celebrating the virgin birth narrative of the Logos. The next thing I want to remind us of is vocabulary redefinition and the modern narratives. So the distortion of biblical terms is disgusting. The redefinition of key biblical terms has allowed for the distortion of modern narratives. And this distortion uses the Bible as a false premise to establish fake Israel, serving as a manufactured center for a new world order, very much akin to Nimrod's attempt to centralize power. There's also historical manipulation. The vocabulary lesson we've discussed back in chapter 7 shows how these redefinitions support false premises, political agendas, and shape modern perceptions and policies regarding Israel. Now, a few notes about theosophy. Founded by Helena Blavatsky in the late 19th century, theosophy is a spiritual movement that blends elements of Eastern religions, mysticism, and occult practices. It promotes the idea of this universal brotherhood and the evolution of humanity through spiritual enlightenment. The dark occult implications are significant. Theosophy's teachings include esoteric knowledge and practices that are associated with the dark occult. They involve rituals, secret knowledge, manipulation of spiritual forces, which are completely antithetical to traditional Christian teachings. Known as a father of premillennial dispensationalism, Darby's teachings have been linked to theosophical ideas. His emphasis on a literal interpretation of the Bible and the separation of Israel and the church aligns with some theosophical concepts. Scofield's reference Bible, influenced by Darby's teaching, has propagated these ideas within the evangelical Christianity that has suddenly emerged in recent decades. Critics argue that Scofield's work has introduced theosophical and occult elements straight into mainstream Christian theology, distorting the original message of the Bible even further than it's already been distorted. But the incorporation of theosophical ideas into dispensationalism has led to a distorted understanding of biblical prophecy, the role of Israel, the handing off of Jesus' messiahship to the enemy, and then giving them a wide open door to attack Christians while Christians wait to be magically taken off into the cosmos. This has influenced American foreign policy and evangelical support for Israel, aligning with modern political and control agendas rather than spiritual truth. They're very much just working right according to the enemy's playbook. The complexity surrounding the establishment of modern Israel and its implications connects ancient conflicts with current political dynamics, the influence of secret societies, elite bloodlines, and their false claims, the church's role in shaping and pushing these perceptions and narratives against the people, and by addressing all of these elements and reminding ourselves of the critical points that we've discussed throughout this book, we can provide a framework for a comprehensive understanding of the intertwined nature of history, politics, religion within the context of the Apostate Church's teachings. When I asked Oz, will I meet Keith Richards in heaven? He said, no. Sons of Moab. That was it. And, well, because I'm part of the dumbass, presumptuous, and prideful drunks of Ephraim, I assumed he was saying Keith Richards wouldn't make it in. No. He was saying if I kept following the lies of the Judahite Pauline narrative, essentially copping out and handing control of your own obedience and righteousness to a human sacrifice cult, I wouldn't make it. See, some sons of Moab are gross, but they're also sons of Ruth, who is from Moab, who Boaz redeemed to carry on the Ephraim tribe from Ephrath, sons of Rachel, right, in the southern kingdom that led to King David. Right there is also where the genealogies were corrupted by Ezra and Josiah of the Nimrod Babylonian Jewish elites when they corrupted everything to reflect a Jerusalem-centric worldview under the Second Temple era. The Bible states their temple was empty. God was nowhere near that Jerusalem temple. Sons of Ruth could also be known as the sons of Moab in a way, were the redeemed of Ephraim to bring the Messiah. So Keith Richards represents both in a single bloodline, where the sons of Moab are the sons of Ephraim, sons of David, sons of Rachel, sons of Jacob, at least in that one bloodline lineage. But who isn't redeemed yet? Well, all those, like I used to be, following the beast, the lion of the tribe of Judah, otherwise known as Philo, Cerinthus, and Paul's eternal entity, the eternal Son. You see, it was never about Keith Richards, a symbol of the Moabites and also a symbol of Ephraim, not making it in. It was about me not making it in because I was still stuck in the Judahite lion's snare, which, it's typical Osmekiel. Because with Oz, every answer is about correcting yourself, looking inside, never about others. Log, it's a thing. My journey, guided by Osmekiel, the Watchman of Ephraim, unfolds against a backdrop of ancient spiritual and bloodline conflicts. From a young age, I faced supernatural attacks. These experiences were not random, but targeted efforts by malevolent entities, influenced by hidden bloodlines, to prevent my spiritual destiny. The theory of satanic bloodlines, occult societies that work with malevolent entities, and governments, by the way, work with them too, through natural law, provides a framework for understanding the broader implications of these attacks. The Ephraim bloodline holds significant spiritual importance, and throughout history, this lineage has been targeted by dark forces seeking to undermine the divine plans for the people in the house of Joseph. The Ephraimite role in the spiritual battle is emblematic of a larger struggle between light and darkness, good and evil, sons of Leah, sons of Rachel. The early church, influenced by first-century pagan Greek philosophers, and later figures like Rufinus and Jerome, and finally, the Rothschild-Schofield nightmare, all faced internal conflicts that led to the corruption of Jesus' original teachings. The Council of Nicaea solidified doctrines such as the Trinity, incorporating elements of Philo's logos theory, which diverged significantly from the simple, direct teachings of Jesus or Joshua, son of David, and his early followers. This theological shift played right into the hands of those seeking to maintain control through deception. Churches are quite literally the modern manifestation of the two major groups that Jesus warned about and fought against: Jewish Pharisees, Babylonian Jewish Pharisees, and their corrupt system of sacrifice, and the pagan Romans. Somehow, Christians have found their way into supporting both of those groups and calling it Christianity in some sort of nightmarish combo platter. So, influenced by the merger of Jewish and Hellenistic traditions, rather than anything to do with the teachings of the Messiah, Jesus, son of David, the church faced many opportunities for political and theological control, which led to the corruption of all the original teachings. Essentially, the absolute sellouts at the Council of Nicaea were influenced by Philo's pagan logos theory and solidified doctrines that diverged from the direct teachings of Jesus and his followers. The entire church is rotted from the inside out, and the church's leaders of all denominations have never had the guts to stand up against this apostasy that's lasted over 2,000 years, far preferring a paycheck, feel-good anecdotes, and a canned curriculum to true biblical study with its members. This theological massacre played into the hands of those seeking to maintain control through deception, aligning with the broader agenda of all these same hidden ancient bloodlines. Now, these deceptions have been woven into religious, political, and social structures, obscuring the true path not only to spiritual enlightenment, but survival. Throughout this journey, Osmekiel served as a guide and protector, revealing hidden truths of natural law, vibration, frequency, and all of the spiritual principles that govern the universe. These teachings, long obscured by religious and political elites, provided the tools to navigate this spiritual path, withstand attacks from malevolent forces. Now, natural law, which encompasses principles like law of vibration, law of attraction, law of cause and effect, have been deliberately obscured and wielded against the public by those in power. By keeping these truths hidden, elites maintain control over the masses, preventing individuals from harnessing their true spiritual potential. The discovery and application of these laws are pivotal in any journey towards understanding. In the early church, a significant shift occurred as Jesus' Davidic lineage and royal diadem bloodline were overshadowed by the adoption of Philos Logos theory. This theological development framed Jesus, son of David, as a mystical divine entity rather than emphasizing his human heritage as the man Joshua, descendant of King David. This shift served to align Christian doctrine with Hellenistic philosophical ideas, distancing happy virgin Christian Jesus from his royal lineage. By promoting this magical logos, the early church leaders effectively obscured any prophetic significance of Christmas Jesus' lineage. This move aligned with the broader agenda of those in power, seeking to maintain control over religious narratives and prevent the resurgence of a messianic figure tied to the royal line of David. It redirected focus from the political and spiritual implications of his Davidic heritage, contributing to the broader strategy of spiritual deception and control, coming to a head in modern times. As Christians follow this false magical entity and the teachings of Paul rather than Jesus, the Rothschild state will claim the title of true Israel and set up their own Davidic king. The journey towards spiritual fortitude and divine alignment can't be deferred until after earthly death. Individuals have to claim their spiritual authority here and now under the true house of David by obeying Jesus and aligning with the laws of God. This process of reclaiming spiritual authority involves a deep commitment to living in accordance with the laws of God. This begins with the Ten Commandments, evolves into the royal law of loving God and neighbor, which, by the way, includes correction and rebuke, and incorporates the principles of natural law. By adhering to these, individuals can elevate their vibrational state, foster spiritual growth, and align with divine purposes. Obedience to Jesus, son of David, is central to reclaiming spiritual authority. His teachings provide a very clear framework for living a life in harmony with God's divine principles. By following his commandments, embracing his message of love, forgiveness, obedience, self-accountability, and humility, individuals can navigate the complexities of the modern world with spiritual clarity and strength. Reclaiming spiritual territory right here on earth from the enemy requires proactive efforts to align with divine truths, resist malevolent influences, including the Christian church itself. This is rejecting the deceptions propagated by those in power, seeking a deeper understanding of these spiritual principles, and by doing so, individuals can break free from the state of perpetual confusion imposed by hidden agendas, institutionalized BS Christianity, and dark forces. As Revelation 12:9 reminds us, and the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent, who's called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. This passage encapsulates the global scale of deception that Christians themselves have woven, and the necessity of reclaiming truth and spiritual authority in the present life. Thank you for listening. I hope you join us as we begin to drop some more in-depth Bible study series where we go line by line and precept upon precept.